Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of week again, everybody's favorite video, MLB Power Rankings. There's a couple games just about to finish. The Mets and A's are heading to the 10th. Couldn't wait for that to finish. And we still have the Baltimore Orioles playing the White Sox, but the O's just took a big lead. So I'm expecting that game to finish as it is. Of course, we do these power rankings every Sunday before the primetime game, so Texas and Houston just kicking off, so that's not going to be included. But other than that, we're going to try and rip through all these games. I have to wrap this up because the Love is Blind finale, reunion, whatever you want to call it, is coming up, and my wife wants to watch it, so got to get this video out first because you guys know I love it. We're going to start things off, number 30, Oakland A's just dropping. 1-3 against Baltimore. Expecting them to lose to the Mets to go 0-3, but overall, I think Moneyball is not working out this season. With everything going on in Oakland, we're not sure if they're going to continue to play in Oakland. Team's a dumpster fire. Number 30 is pretty much where they're going to be. Number 29, I'm moving them up 1-2 against Toronto. They beat San Fran. Both games they played postponed today, their third game. However, I think won at least one of them in extras. Might have been both in extras. Still not sure if Detroit's going to put it together, but I think they can. Hinch did not look good as a manager against the Toronto Blue Jays. Baez just complete disaster in that series. So a little bit of concern there. Of course, I do think Detroit has potential to move up, but they're not making the playoffs. Next up, Washington, 2-1 against the Angels, 1-2 against Cleveland. Just a 500 week. Nothing really else to write home about with Washington. They're not really making headlines, not expected to do much, etc., etc. Next up, Kansas City, 1-2 against Texas, 0-3 against Atlanta. Arguably, you could move these three teams around. KC maybe the second worst, but who really cares? KC, again, in a situation where it's going to be a long season. They're hoping some of these guys develop into some stars, but they have a lot of rebuilding to do themselves. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs, that's for sure, at least. Number 26, we got Colorado, 1-2 against the Cardinals, getting swept over the weekend against Seattle. Almost the victim of a perfect game. Castillo won a little bit, I think 6 innings, perfect game against Colorado. So, disaster. Colorado, I thought they were looking better on paper at least, but so far out of the gate, and based on what we saw last season with them, it kind of got to continue that they're going to continue to show the colors that they are. So 26 is right there, but not right too far ahead of them. Got the San Francisco Giants, 1-2 against the Dodgers, 0-2 against Detroit. I'm not sure when they're going to make up that game against Detroit. It's going to have to come somewhere later in the season, I think. But San Francisco, don't like what I'm seeing right now against them. Maybe it's just a little bit of early season. Maybe I'm over harsh on them right now, but I don't see a way of them making the playoffs. I don't see the path, and especially with the lack of consistency, to say the least. Next up, 24. I got Cincinnati Reds. 0-3 against Atlanta, and then 2-2 against Philly. They, I think, won the season series against Philly over the past 2 weeks. But there's just no consistency in terms of their offense and giving up the runs themselves. All over the place. A couple of times they give up massive numbers of runs, and at the same time their offense becomes quiet at times. It's a division where they're going to pick up some wins, I think. I think they're better than all these teams, and I think they are trending up. But they got a long way to go. We're still not talking about teams that we're going to have any idea of what playoff race is going to be. Number 23, we're starting to make a little bit of a transition here in the kind of teams we're talking about. 1-2 against Minnesota. Expected to go 1-2 against Baltimore, assuming that ends the way it is. And the White Sox, kind of a disaster, I think, at this point. Over the past 2 years, you expected them to be division competing for that, doing all that kind of stuff, but they just fallen short, and it's just been like a spiral down into 23. Like, it's been disaster, and I don't see the fix for them right now. The division, the top of the division, the other two teams seem to be getting better, at least playing better, and I don't see where the saving grace is going to come for the White Sox. But I'm not discounting it. I think starting now, we're talking about teams that, if they're going to turn around, they got to turn it around quick. but not a lot of hope still. Number 22, this is team I projected to be last in the American League East. They got swept by Tampa, but then they turned the tables and they did the sweeping against the Angels. So I don't know. I'm going to continue to keep them somewhat low because of where I project them in terms of the playoff race, not having a shot, but just because the division's so tough. Can they maybe beat teams up in the middle of the league? Probably. But overall, power rankings, they're not a threat in my eyes. Maybe you could argue, based on what I was saying about Chicago, that these two should be even switched. Number 21, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks 2-1 against Milwaukee and 1-2 against Miami. So they go in early in the week. I was high on them, talking pretty high on them in the last couple of weeks, talking about how they're going. They're just like top heavy, top pitching heavy, top batting heavy. There's no depth. And it kind of showed in the series against the Miami. So they blew their load against Milwaukee, won that series, super awesome, but then they can't continue it against a team like Miami, who's like an average, solid across the board kind of team. So I still don't think Arizona's making a lot of strides. Number 20, Pittsburgh, 1-2 against Houston, 2-2 against the Cardinals. So that's a huge series for the Pirates. They lost O'Neill last Sunday. I think the news came out after that, after I filmed the power ranking, so I had to move him up to 17, jumping the gun. Thought O'Neill Cruz would help carry that load, but he's going to be out for a couple of months now with that fractured ankle. Puts Pittsburgh a little bit back here. However, they got a lot to build off. They had a good week tying the Cardinals, a team that they've struggled with for so many years and so many battles there. Tying that series well, being a little shorthanded. I think if they win, they can keep this kind of going. They're a shot in this division. This division is not out of the question, although I think it's unlikely. Number 19, the team they just lost to, I was just talking about. Where are they here? 2-1 against Philly, and then 2-1 against Arizona. So a winning week for the Marlins. Their run differential and their expected wins are not where they are. They should be. That's still a lot of concern whether they can keep it going. Winning week, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of them throughout the season for the Marlins, but is what it is. Next up, we got the Baltimore Orioles, 3-1 against Oakland. So we talked about it last week, how they had to take care of business against the A's if I was going to start moving them up. They did that. And now they're beating up on a Chicago White Sox team that I remember last year they were jockeying for position with each other, and then the Orioles walked in and won that as well. So I think the Orioles have now cemented themselves as a very center solid team. Whether they're going to be able to continue to compete when they start playing these top American League East teams, these division leading teams, it's a little bit of a concern. We know their offense has the powerhouse. Rutschman, been a monster, but the pitching is a big concern, especially when you start playing against other top teams with top offenses like the Orioles, but also have the pitching to back it up. So it's going to be interesting how the Orioles play. I know the rest of the month, they still have somewhat of an easy schedule. They play, I believe, the Tigers a couple of times. They have the Nationals, so they're going to be picking up wins. They have to keep this going. They got to probably play 700 baseball against these bottom teams, and we're going to start seeing them move up. Number 17, just straight struggling right now. 1-2 against Miami, 2-2 against Cincinnati. The offense has been crazy. Like, there's been a couple of games now that they just put up massive double-digit numbers. They're missing Bryce Harper still. He's maybe coming back soon. It's expected that he might miss his minor league stint. But a lot of concern. The pitching has been so inconsistent. They're definitely not showing what it takes to go to the World Series again. And they're in this tough division where right now I don't see them competing at all against those top two teams. So we need to see something different from the Phillies, or we're not going to see them in the playoff conversation. Number 16, solid week for Seattle. A little bit of a bounce back, finishing the week 3-0 against Colorado after losing a tough series against the Cubs. But the Cubs are starting to surprise, and surprisingly, I haven't talked about them yet. Seattle's in a tough division, and the West is certainly turning into its own style of like the AL East. We got 4 teams that all have aspirations really about making the playoffs. With the 5th team being the Oakland A's completely out of it, this is the next lowest team I have right now. Lot of competition, and that goes with the LA Angels 1-2 against Washington, 0-3 against Boston. Probably should switch these around. wasn't ready to do it. I want to see these two teams play. I think they match up super close. And I give the Ohtani factor and the Trout factor a little bit of an edge, but I know Seattle has Kelenic, who's been popping off for the first time that we've been waiting for that for him. Whether you can keep that up, another story, but these two teams are like balanced right now. It's going to be fun when they start playing each other a lot of games. 14, moving up a bunch of spots. We got the Cubs 2-1 against Seattle, 2-1 against Dodgers. They just continue to win, and after looking deeper at this team, they have the depth. They made the additions over the offseason with Swanson making a big signing there, and they got Bellinger deep in the lineup. The rotation is nothing to scoff at, and when it comes to playoff baseball, you need a rotation if you're going to do this long season. They have it. They're going to be in the playoff race. They're going to be in the conversation. Right now, I think 12-13 is kind of where the bubble is, right? So they're right on the outside, but they're in a division that they could win. Don't be surprised. This division is a lot closer than it looks. 13, Guardians, 1-2 against the Yankees. 2-1 against the Nationals. Just an average week for an average team. The Guardians just kind of floating exactly where they were last week. I don't have much to say about them. Number 12, Texas. 2-1 against Kansas City. 1-1 against Houston. And they're playing right now, and even if they won tonight, I probably wouldn't say much about that. I'd still probably keep Houston above them. But Texas is making a statement. Their team is solid all around, and the depth is there. It seems like one of those teams that went from right in the basement for like all of last year. Maybe they started to edge up a little bit halfway through the season. But before that, they were definitely in the basement. Out of all the teams that were in the basement over the past 2 years, they are the ones just like super powering out of it. And I see them in playoff contention for most of the season unless something goes horribly wrong. 11, Cardinals 2-1 against Colorado, 2-2 against the Pirates, right? I already talked about that series. I'm going to just say I had on the thumbnail the Cardinals as dropping. And it's more because I think last week I was talking about how this would be the lowest they could go. A little bit different on that now. I think this potentially is solid where they are, but we could see them go lower. It's starting to be a little bit concerned about this pitching on this team. And this division is a lot closer than I had first anticipated. Didn't really put as much credit in the Cubs. And maybe I underestimated what the Pirates, the steps forward they're going to take this season. So this division is going to be a lot close. I think we could see like Cubs and Pirates shifting up while these guys stay in here. And if they play worse, we're going to see that like swaps, right? So Cardinals right now, their offense is what it's supposed to be. It's been a little bit of a struggle. Haven't been seen them too much since that first series against the Jays. So that's where we got them. Number 10, we got Toronto going 2-1 against Detroit early in the week, keeping the team rolling after an easy week the week before. And then they snapped that Rays winning streak before they could set the record. If you followed me on Twitter, you would have saw me call the shot before it happened. Of course, I probably would have said that no matter what. But Jays 10th, I'm still a hella concerned about their rotation. Their bullpen just has not been there. And but the offense has been fire. I got to be a little bit excited. I think they're on their way to easily be a playoff team unless something bad really happens. Number 9, we have the Dodgers, 2-1 against San Fran, 1-2 against Cubs. Again, another average week. They played some tight, close games against the Cubs. Could have went either way a couple of times. So it didn't hurt them too much losing that series, and they won. Still kind of think them tight in that playoff race. But I do, like I talked about last week, a lot of concerns going on with them. Number 8, Minnesota. 2-1 against the White Sox and 2-2 against the Yankees. So pretty solid week playing two teams. The White Sox, the team they want to beat up on a playoff division rival. And then the Yankees holding their own in a 4-game series, 2-2. Got to be pretty excited playing a team that's expected to be better than you always. And splitting it. Number 7, we got San Diego Padres 1-2 against the Mets, 1-3 against the Brewers. So it was a pretty rough week for the Padres, playing two top teams in the MLB, two teams that are now officially ahead of them, as you can see, and losing both series and not having any huge breakout, keeping them games that, you got to get excited about. So it's a little bit of a concern here. I still edge them ahead of the Dodgers long term, but all it takes is now the Dodgers to roll in, and you're going to see them keep falling. As teams roll in, they're playing these tough teams, and they can't beat them, they're going to fall out. And before you know it, you could be fighting for the playoff spot, much like they were last year. Number 6, the New York Mets. Right now, they did take the lead, but now Oakland's going to come up to bat, and we all know how that goes. One run does not mean much. But the Mets, they went 2-1 against San Diego, and they're 2-1, 3-0 maybe against Oakland. So pretty solid week. Going to just keep the momentum going. But yeah, they got to keep it going. At this point, when you're in the top row, you're a division leader. You're fighting for division. You to just maintain your spot here. You got to keep playing 600 baseball. And if you want to start moving up, you got to play 600 week after week after week. Well, one of your other teams struggle, and right now that is not happening because we got number 5, Houston Astros, 2-1 against Pittsburgh, 1-1 against Texas. A little bit of a slow start, a little bit of a hangover, but I'm not concerned yet for the Astros. Altuve's still out, of course, and a lot going on. They have 2 hungry teams that are, in my opinion, a little bit farther behind than you would expect, but in terms of games back, in terms of division, they're a lot closer. All it takes is a win streak from one of these teams, a losing streak, and the gap is 0. So Houston, while they're number 5, they're holding on, and it could go either way for this team. Just got to play the games. Number 4, Milwaukee Brewers are making waves for me. I did not see this coming into the season. They're 2-1. Or 1-2 against Arizona, so we talked about that a little bit already, and then they went 3-1 against the Padres over the weekend, a huge bounce back. And I think this team has what it takes to really shut teams down. This pitching has been unbelievable. They won a lot of games by 1-run games. It's been tight, but they're winning them, and they're clutch. And right now, I think they are by far the favorite in that Central Division. Number 3, I think the same spot as last week, 2-1. Against Cleveland. I don't know what it is. They just have Cleveland's number all the time. And then, of course, they split with Minnesota. We talked about that already. Yankees, pretty much at this point, anything less than top 5 is huge disappointment. I think if you're below top 3, you're a huge disappointment as a Yankees fan. You would expect your team to be here. Talent is top-notch of a team, and they're going to keep rolling. Division's tough. They're going to have a tough time. You really want to win this division because probably the team that wins this division is going to get that bye in that first round, right? So only one team can do that. Right now, they're in second in the division, right? Next up, Atlanta, 3-0 against Cincy, 3-0 against KC, 6-0 sweep week. I took a lot of flack week 1 that I had them too low. I might have even took flack last week that I had them too low. Might even get flack this week that I have them too low because they could arguably be the best team, number 1 right now. But they got number 2. And I'm not going to hold number 1 too much penalty. Got Tampa Bay Rays. They lost their first series. Their massive win streak came to an end at the hand of the Blue Jays. One of their top competitors. These 2 teams have played each other very tough for decades, really. But since Tampa Bay came into the league, those teams have ever matched so well. Tampa Bay bounced back tonight in a way that I like to see from a number 1 team. Sure, they lost 2 in a row against Toronto. They were on that massive win streak high, so losing the first one is going to happen. Second one, no big deal, and they bounced back today in a big way. I think there was 8-1, 10-1, big win over the Jays, over Jays Manoah, who's supposed to be his ace. Their offense is for real. It's been just popping. Their run differential, while they've played a very easy schedule right now, is biggest in the league. And their pitching has been lethal as well, as we saw them bounce back. They're not going to really put up 3-game losing streaks very often with this rotation. Maybe might not even see it this year, right? Heard it here first. But either way, guys, there you have it. Power rankings updated. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys agree with, disagree with. Where am I out to lunch? Where am I bang on? That might be a hot take. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We will see you for that next video.